You can't organize collective enterprise above the very, very small group, 5 or 6 person level without an authority structure. So the practice of leadership almost always takes place within structures of authority. One either leads without authority from below or from outside the organizational structure, putting pressure on it, or one leads from an authority position. Not all people in high positions of authority lead by any means. We know that because we complain frequently about the leadership we get from people in high executive position. But it is possible to lead from positions of authority, and it's really important. We need people in authority positions to lead. It doesn't naturally come with the territory because people in authority are under enormous pressure to provide easy and quick, decisive solutions to problems. They're under pressure to treat adaptive challenges as if they were technical. There are a whole host of problems that maybe once were adaptive challenges to humanity, to us, for which we over time evolved, developed capacity. So that capacity to solve problems that is already within our know-how, problems for which we have the solutions, the right designs in place. I call those technical problems. They could also be called routine problems. They're basically problems for which we have the know-how. The difference between a technical problem and an adaptive challenge is the degree to which the adaptive challenge forces a response, requires or demands a response that's outside our current repertoire, where our current know-how just isn't quite sufficient, where there isn't an expert on the subject who can fix the problem, where our current organizational design or structure, stories, narratives, metaphors don't do the job sufficiently. For example, a person has heart disease, you can redo the plumbing to their heart through very sophisticated surgery, but you're still left after surgery with the problem of how to get that person to live a healthier life. Much easier to fix the heart than to change it. To get a person to stop smoking, to get exercise. The compliance rates in surgery are, around 20%. 80% of the time, even after life-threatening illness, people will have a great deal of difficulty changing the behaviors that are needed for them to do their part. So the authority structure can do its part, but adaptive challenges require people to do their part, because in an adaptive challenge, you can't take the problem off people's shoulders and then give them a solution. In an adaptive challenge, the people are part of the problem, and their ownership of the problem and their responsibility taking for the problem becomes part of the solution itself. Most problems come bundled. There are some problems that are purely technical. Child comes to you with an ear infection, you diagnose that problem, you prescribe some form of penicillin, the child gets better. There are problems that are purely technical. But most problems that people in religious life, and certainly in religious authority, address are partly technical and partly adaptive. They come bundled. But there are many problems that come bundled, and one needs to be able to tease out those parts that can be treated with authoritative know-how from those parts that are going to require changes in the congregation, changes in the community. So there are a series of indicators to distinguish problems that are technical from problems that are adaptive. For example, crisis is usually an indicator of an adaptive challenge. A challenge that has been adaptive in the past, that hasn't been addressed properly, and therefore resurfaces periodically and generates a crisis. In the economic crisis the United States is currently finding itself in, and indeed the global economy, it clearly represents a series of technical problems in terms of design and regulation and certain banking instruments and lending practices, but also an adaptive challenge in a whole series of behaviors Americans, as well as high-powered finance executives, as well as politicians, as well as our basic philosophy of free market economics, that need to be adjusted, that are going to need to be refashioned, in which a lot of experimentation is going to be required as we discover how to build a healthier economy again, an economy that isn't quite as vulnerable as we've discovered that we are. So recurrent crisis is an indicator of an adaptive challenge. Persistent conflict is usually an indicator of an adaptive challenge. One then has to be able to probe, diagnose, and get an articulation of the nature of that conflict. What is this conflict really about? How do I listen to the song beneath the words? What are the real stakes, loyalties, constituencies, values that are at the heart of this conflict? An early indicator of an adaptive challenge is if you can identify, if you know quickly that it's going to require people to learn new ways. If you know that our current know-how won't quite do it, then you know right away that you're facing an adaptive challenge where discovery and learning is necessary. So the classic failing, and the most common failure that I've seen in leadership over many years, is this diagnostic failure. People in high positions of authority fail to lead because they've ended up treating an adaptive challenge as if it were technical. They throw technical fixes at the problem persists, and then over time, people get disappointed that you haven't really solved the problem, and then they take you down and you get pushed out. All the while, the people keep hoping somebody in authority is going to have a solution. That pattern of dependency, citizens look to authorities for decisive solutions, that pattern of dependency remains. So you end up having a revolving door where people in politics or people in organizational authority lose credibility. They keep over-promising what they can deliver. Citizens keep getting disappointed in what is delivered, and yet the dependency remains. That cycle needs to be stopped by either citizens or people in authority calling for a different conversation, calling citizens to realize that there are a lot of problems for which there are no quick technical solutions, where their own responsibility taking is going to be necessary, where they're going to have to pay some of the costs, where some of their ways of being, their attitudes, their loyalties will need to be renegotiated. And where their job as an authority isn't to provide the answers, but is instead to frame the right questions for which answers are developed and discovered over time by the collective intelligence of the people.